cloud, whatever the cloud is. I mean, I get that it exists, but I'm still like, what is iCloud? Like, come on.
I know. Where does it go?
Yeah, where does it go? It's like an infinite storage somewhere. But welcome back to the show. We have an absolute legend on the podcast. We have Leanne Pelosi on the show. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been a huge fan since Dara Reed, a good friend of mine in Winnipeg, used to talk about you 24/7 when she was a child.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on the show. Likewise, big fan of you, Jody, your style, Dara. You guys are legends.
Nah. Yeah, Dara is definitely a legend. I mean, but I know we're working towards that. But I mean, you've been in the game for sometimes I just forget how long you've actually been doing this, because it hasn't been for 10 years or even 20 years. I mean, it's 20 plus. It's like a Devin Walsh kind of in the female aspect of snowboarding. And before we dive far into this podcast, I got a message the other day on Instagram saying that female, is it like a dated term? Does that offend you if I say female snowboarding, or is that just somebody who was really sensitive about something?
I think it's fine. I think like the world is moving towards more of like a everybody, more inclusive kind of labeling. But I think talking about women snowboarding, actually, like when I made Full Moon, that was one thing I didn't want it to refer to it, even though it was a women's film. I didn't ever really refer to it as a women's film with that prefix, just because I wanted it to be inclusive.
A film.
Yeah. It was a film with our friends, but I wanted like the guys to feel like they could support it and not feel like they were alienated from this like project.
That's a good way. I just wanted to touch base on that before I I feel like you have to be, I'm a podcast host, you know what I mean? It's important to me to not like use dated terminology and stuff like that. I mean, It's important for me to continue learning, especially, I mean, from growing up in Winnipeg, you know what I mean? You don't think that it has such a strong impact on you. You're like, your childhood, but it does. And coming from a town of 800 people in the middle of Canada, I mean, it helped shape me in some amazing ways. But there was definitely some dated terminology and stuff like that was continuing on. And I'm glad that we're both on the same page. Female, women snowboarding, you can still use those terms. We were just discussing before we started recording that you've embarked on a journey and you've started building something in the woods with your amazing partner in crime, husband. I'm not too sure what you guys are. Common-law, whatever.
Partner for life.
Partner for life, the best man ever. Jeff Keenan, who's also an owner of Dinosaurs Will Die, have embarked on a journey making a retreat on the Vancouver Island. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you started this project?
Yeah, well, it was definitely one of those dreams where it was just like, I don't know. We were in Yuki. Jeff spent years going there surfing and camping, and we love it so much. I just wanted to make it a part of our lives officially. So we stepped on this land like 5 years ago and had no idea what we were getting into, but it was like this beautiful 1 acre property on the inlet. And at that time, Ucluelet was, it was going through like a little bit of like a down cycle, I would say, in real estate. Like nobody was thinking, Jeff was like, I don't think this is a good investment, Leanne. I was like, I think it is. Let's do this.
I have a vision.
Yeah, we literally like walked from the property and went right to the realtor's office and put in an offer on the land. And then we got it. And then I was like, whoa, this is actually going to be a pretty big project.
One of those things that you're like, I really hope this all comes together, like you know, and then it does. And then you sign the paperwork and then you get up the next morning and you're like staring at your plot of land with a shovel in your hand. You're like, where do we start?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we did for 4 years. We didn't do anything to the land because we were just trying to figure out how to plan what we were going to do. We had to rezone it. It's a protected island. We had to count the trees, measure every single one. Like there was there was a big process into just getting it like ready to put anything on it. And then of course, like designing. So anyways, long story short, it's the Saltwater Retreat, and we can have up to 4 cabins plus a house. And right now we've built 2 400 square foot cabins and a utility fun shed that has all the toys. So yeah, they're these like little Scandinavian cabins. We'll be renting them out in the summers, and our plan is to spend the summers in Ucluelet and live that West Coast dream life. So the thing is like they're small. They're just 1-bedroom cabins, but the whole point about being out there is to enjoy everything around it and outside. And so yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
I'm excited about it because I mean, we're not best friends, but I feel like maybe there's a discount code in there for me or something.
100%. We need that good review, Jody.
Did you purchase the lumber before stuff skyrocketed?
We did.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a score. Because like, I don't think we'd be able to afford, we're already on that like rim of being over budget, but it's a lot just to build and then add that lumber cost. Yeah.
There is no construction that I've ever done. And I've been doing construction trades jobs on and off my entire life. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody nail a budget. I mean, everyone plans like, you know, the house is going to cost 1.1 million. And then you overhear the homeowner and the contractor be like, if you want the chimney, it's going to be 1.2. That's another $100,000.
I know. Well, we had like the problem with our lot was that it's such a long, skinny lot that just to put the services in was like thousands of dollars, that we were like, oh, you know, it's not going to a cool spa, it's going to wires in the ground.
And this is going to be more of like a in the woods, relaxed kind of retreat. I'm imagining like a cold pool, you said, and maybe some hot water baths and stuff like that. It seems like it's going to be a place for people to go relax and surf. Kind of. Is there surf nearby? Do you have a break there, or is it?
Yep, there's this is definitely a spot to relax. Like the whole idea about it was to have a rustic kind of camping vibe. So there will be like some cedar tubs behind the cabin.
Cool, cedar.
A sauna. We've got our big project this summer is to build the sauna and then figure out how to do a waterfall cold plunge. So if anybody out there knows, hit me up.
That's me right here. You actually heard me and Russell Dalby built the Scandinavian spa.
Oh, perfect. You're hired.
I didn't do the whole thing. Obviously, I was mainly like the grunt guy moving around rocks and stuff like that, and a little bit in the Bobcat and the Mini X. But
did
Russell,
you really? You're telling this is a true story.
Yeah, true story. The Scandinavian Spa and Whistler, Russell Dalby, MT Studios. There's a guy named Mike Tyler who's just a phenomenal stone worker. So if anybody's in the Sea to Sky area that needs somebody, Mike Tyler, good plug there. And Russell Dalby, who's also a legendary snowboard photographer, is just unreal at landscaping. I feel like a lot of snowboard people to begin with, you know, they spend the 6 months snowboarding, and then inevitably the 6 months off is typically in trades.
Yeah, I was a landscaper too when I first moved to Whistler.
No way. Yeah. Let's throw it back to snowboarding here a little bit. So what was Leanne's childhood like? Where did you grow up?
I grew up, I was born in the UK.
What?
And then, yeah.
I don't know you at all.
I know. And then my parents immigrated when I was 2. I became a Canadian when I was 5. My dad moved the family to Alberta, and I grew up in Calgary, went to university, and then I just felt the pull to Whistler immediately after, I would say from high school through university, that's all I wanted to do was go to Whistler. And then finally I came for one season, and then it turned into 17.
Whistler, eh? Whistler has this special energy that once you get off the bus, I mean, at least it did for me. When I got there, it was the same thing. 1 year intention, 17 years later, I was like, wait a minute. I had all these plans and a girl I was going to go back to, and I was going to work at this. I was going to lay sewer pipe, but work my way up. You know what I mean? But, you know, you don't just move to Whistler. You have to get into snowboarding. So how did that kind of fall into your lap? I know that you have an older brother. I'm wondering if he shaped it, or if you
Younger brother.
A younger brother. How did you come across this slippery wood tool?
Well, I would say it originally started in high school in the late 90s. And yeah, my brother was into skateboarding big time. He was one of the original kind of guys that helped make that big Calgary skate park happen.
Oh yeah, the Millennium.
Yeah. He was pretty involved in that like skate scene back then. And so my brother and I, we ended up sharing a snowboard. My parents bought us one snowboard to share. And then we would go to Wintergreen and Fortress. And that was until I think like the older kids in school got their licenses, and then we would just hop in with them. And we would go to Lake Louise, was like the step up from there. We'd spend 2 hours driving from Calgary to Lake Louise every single day, Saturday, Sunday, just so addicted to snowboarding. And then, through my brother's skateboarding background, we were hitting street rails in the evenings.
Really?
Yeah.
You were jumping on steel in the 90s.
No. I would say early 2000s. I don't know.
Oh, but even still.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. So I was an early adopter into that whole rail seat. Right. It was like right on the cusp of when like rail jams started happening. So it's kind of perfect timing.
People, I think, when they think of Leanne, they think like household name in women's backcountry freestyle snowboarding pioneer. But if you look into your early 2000s, I mean, yeah, you were a rail jam queen back then.
Yeah, that's all I knew how to do. I didn't ride anything else other than the local golf course jumps, and then the Calgary rails with my brother. And then I wasn't into like big mountain riding in Alberta. There's so many rocks. And that's for Andrew Hardingham.
Yeah, we'll save the rocks for Andrew Hardingham, whose name's been brought up a lot lately. And I mean, I'm glad, because that maniac has done a lot of monumental things on his snowboard. Bring it back to the handrails though. Did you shovel the stairs completely, or did you leave them buried? Or are you hitting them like Aaron Bittner, completely dry, no snow, like bringing arena snow to setups?
I don't remember. It wasn't like so proper back then. Like, I don't think we were like perfectly like taking the snow off. It always seemed like that was a pretty big hazard with the stairs. I don't think I made it even more hazardous for myself, but I do remember the stairs being pretty prevalent when we would hit these rails, because it's Calgary. It's like not like wet snow that sticks to the stairs. It was just like we'd have to literally go and scrape everywhere around to build a snow jump onto the rails. But that was the time when we would count stairs. Do you remember that?
Oh, I mean, that art has disappeared, but I think anyone in the early 2000s that was skateboarding or snowboarding was like, yeah, that was the thing. Like, I hit a 12 stair last night, and you'd be like, no, that's a 13.
Yeah.
And if you hit like a 20, you were like some sort of god. And then there was somebody like TJ Schneider that was just, winning all the W's back then. Him and Dustin Craven were just hitting like 80 stair rails.
Yeah, and James Beach.
James Beach is another one. Yeah.
Yeah. That whole, and Dwayne Weeb.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was fun. Then we started like traveling to go hit rails. So I remember seeing Jan Amayan and Tara Dakitis in the Mac Dog movie, and I think they hit like a 28 stair or something. And I was like,
what?
I know a rail that might be a little bit longer. It might be a 30 stair. It's that big one in Kelowna with like the big stairs, and then there's, it's like a really long straight down rail.
Glen Rosa?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. No way. That's sick. You hit that rail?
Yeah, I board slid that, like one of the first big rails I ever did.
That rail is steep and fast, and then it goes into the land, like it drives you into the landing. And what comes to mind lately as far as a woman going there and destroying that is Maria Thompson did a sick switch front board on that rail like a few years ago. Great. So good. Yeah. It's sick that you hit it 20 years ago though. I also hit that rail with my first rail trip ever. I hit that rail with Jess Camira. And,
no way.
And I tacoed and died. And I think Jess board slid it, not knowing that you had board slid it 10 years ago.
I mean, I'd be so scared to do anything switch or front board. Like Maria Thompson, whoa, props.
Yeah, she's
rail level just went sky high.
Yeah, she is something very special when it comes to, I mean, I've snowboarded with her for her entire duration of being in Canada, and getting to witness her just go from a girl that just truly loves snowboarding and just pure passion to her being on the global team for Burton and being in the Burton movie, and then her this year having a big part in the King Snow movie that I heard she did really well in. And she deserves it a million times over. She has put the work in, and it didn't come from any like outside. It was just like such an authentic place. She just loved snowboarding, so she got good.
Yeah, she's definitely, I think she's like a little Canadian Swedish also.
Yeah, I don't want to, I don't know her. She's from Europe, but where exactly I kind of forget. Denmark.
Either way,
I'm actually good friends with her, so I'm a little bit embarrassed that I don't know.
Well, Scandinavia, but she's definitely like, she's such an inspiration. She had a child. She would like pass her child Teo over to her friends while she started hitting these rails. I just think that it is so rad that a company like Burton went and put her onto the pro team, and
totally. I agree. I don't think that would have happened 10 or so years ago. They would have looked at like the logistics of it and been like, oh, like a female who's already, because she was a little like, as far as snowboarding goes, throwing it back to counting the stairs, because that was like part of the era you grew up in. I feel like the era you grew up in also, there was an expiration date on snowboarders. You know what I mean? Like once you got into your late 20s, mid 20s, you were considered a very old snowboarder. And Maria's career just started taking off in her like mid 20s. I'm assuming she's like 28, 29 now. And she's just showing people what she's capable of now. And yourself too. I mean, like from riding, like you've crossed all of the checklists off as far as like in snowboarding, going from like rail jam girl, contest girl, X Games, having your own summer camp, which we will need to talk about. And I mean, film productions, backcountry riding, backcountry freestyle, and then into more of like a line rider now, I would say. And it's like, what a long career.
I know. But the thing is like, you just evolve with what you want to do. And I've just felt like it's been a natural, slow evolution of, not wanting to hit rails anymore, and then just strictly riding backcountry. I've always just kind of gone with my gut feeling on all of that stuff. And it's worked out. But I did everything I could to just try and stay in the mountains and keep that lifestyle going with the snowboard camps and the hustling in the summers.
Well, let's not. So you moved to Whistler, you leave Lake Louise. When you got to Whistler, what was the vibe like back then for you? Like you get here, you get dropped off the bus. You said you were only going to stay here for a year. what was this place like? Why did it capture you for 17 more years?
It was amazing. So my friend Joanna Marikiewicz was dating Justin Lamoureux, and so I found like 10 roommates, moved into like a little 2-bedroom condo, and was just like basically sleeping on the floor like everybody does. And I worked at Earl's in the winters, and then I was a landscaper in the summers. But the vibe was just so fun. Like it seemed like there was just less rules. Whistler was like very much a party town. It still is, but there was like the West Beach Classic, there was Camp of Champions going off. And I think that was at the height of Camp of Champs in the summer, where it was just like 1,000 kids, like campers, just rolling around town with like no parental control.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Like it was definitely loose. It was loose, I would say, on all aspects. From the competition scene, there was a lot of competitions in snowboarding. There was no Olympics. It was just kind of like party vibes. It was encouraged to be a part of the party, on the hill and off the hill, like usually.
And did you embark on that journey?
Yeah, it was fun.
And
sure.
So for a woman that comes from Calgary, you get to Whistler. Was there a community of other like-minded females who were like loved snowboarding, didn't want to just do it for the partying and for the guys, but actually were like, I want to go and learn lip slides tomorrow or front 270s, and I look up to Tara Dakitis and stuff? Like, was there a small community of you guys, or is it was just you?
There was a very small group of like women that were pushing it at that time. I was mainly riding with like my roommates. Do you remember Jeff Pepperdine?
Oh, very well.
And like JF Fortan and like just the early crew that I kind of like got into. Like we would just film each other in the Whistler Park. And actually that was when snowboard.com existed. And so we were I found my community on snowboard.com. And then through that kind of met all the snowboarders in Whistler. But I was intimidated. It was like, what's that?
That's sick. Snowboard.com, I feel like for the early 2000s, it helped a lot of people out too. It like built relationships and stuff. It was like Instagram 20 years before Instagram. That was specifically catered towards snowboarders. It was a website where you could make a profile and share your photos and your videos on it in 2000. You know what I mean? Like way ahead of its time. Yeah. And I mean, I was on there. That's how I first heard of like tons of people. So I could only imagine what it would be like if you were living in the Mecca for snowboarding, Whistler back then, and like not knowing a lot of people. You probably got to know a lot of people through that channel. Yeah,
100%. I started shooting with Russell Dalby, and his first photo published was my first photo published.
No way.
And I got like an interview in a skateboard magazine doing like a 270 onto a rail.
What? Was it concrete powder?
Yeah.
Yes, of course it was. That's sick.
Yeah. But yeah, I started hanging out with Kevin Sansalone and Jeff Keenan at the summer camps. That was where I met Jeff. And they were producing the Skids movies back in the day. So I was just kind of like, these guys are cool. They're going to be my friends and nothing more than that.
Little did you know you'd be with Jeff for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh my. So the summer camp though, we touched base on that for a brief second. You started a summer camp way back in the day. MGT summer camp. That was a women's only snowboard camp, which was like, where did you get this idea? Was like, where did this idea come from? This seems like a ginormous undertaking for somebody young, like entrepreneur skills through the roof, to be like, I'm going to tackle this project. Cause like you said, there's 1,000 kids running around the village. out of control and you're like, I want to embark on that journey.
Yeah, totally. I don't know. I don't think there was much thinking about it, to be honest. Like, it was just, I was so pumped on being a part of the community that I was like, if there's anything I could do to help grow it and bring more, like maybe it was the influence of me not having that many girls to snowboard with when I first moved to Whistler. I just, yeah, I felt like me and my friend Joanna, we were like, let's do this. And then we just did it with really having no idea where it was going to go, but it ended up being a really successful snowboard camp. We did 2-day camps. We did them all over. We did South America. We did Mount Hood, the glacier here in Whistler. We did like Lake Louise, Nakiska, kind of all over the place. We did 10 years of it. So wow. Yeah, I ended up hiring Robin Van Gin to manage them because my career was starting to take off, and then her career started taking off. So it was like, in the end, we just disbanded the whole thing. But it was nice to see it get to 10 years.
That's so. You just at one point, you guys both had too much going on, and it just like needed to be set aside.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Joanna was working full time. And this was like a passion project more than anything.
Yeah, was it lucrative? Did you make a little bit of money at least, or is it more just like you're like, oh, this is more just for the love and giving back to the?
It was, I mean, it was supported by sponsorships. It wouldn't have been able to run without that, because I was bringing professional riders in from like the States, so we had a little bit of a high cost just with travel, bringing coaches in. Yeah, totally. But with the support of the sponsors, it made it work. So I was able to pay the coaches for their time, and then we never ended up in the hole. So that was good.
Was there any campers that came from your camp who are notable now today?
Oh, there probably was. Well, I'm just trying to think. Did Raywin ever come to our camp? Raywin was a really
I feel like Dara went to your camp. I feel like she was this like, I feel like that name MGT stuck in my
More Good Times.
What did it stand
for? It stood for More Good Times.
Oh, there we go. See, I never knew.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Dara is a prime example. I'm not sure. I don't remember if she must have come to the camp.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. And it's not, I don't think that that's offensive, because you have to realize that you said you ran this camp or helped run it for 10 years. That's hundreds and hundreds of kids. And you're like, yeah, you know, it's overwhelming, because when you're working at a summer camp, it's like you're trying to be present one-on-one with those kids, but you're also like, I also have to call Jeff's parents back and tell them that we're running out of his Ritalin. And there's so many things at a summer camp that you have to think about constantly. And like, this kid forgot his jacket at the skate park. I have to pick that up. Then I have to pick up this van. And I mean, I could only imagine at a young age with a bunch of girls, that would be was it ever overwhelming? Did you ever go like, I'm done?
No, I thought MGT was like pretty, I mean, our crew was really on point and everybody was pretty pro. Like, the campers were professional and cool. When I went to COC, different story.
That was wild. Oh man.
Because I was a driver. Like, I had my class 4 license and I would drive the campers from camp to the airport. And more often than not, I ended up like stopping on the side of the road for the kids to barf because they were hungover. And then I had the parents calling me because I had the phone, and they were like, my kid came back and he told me that he was partying, or like, you know, like just like funny stories. And I'm like, sorry, I don't know.
Nice. Yeah. Did you ever, was there any specific examples of like, whoa, like Karen's parents almost like shut the camp down? Because I remember specifically there was definitely some crazy moments at Camp of Champions with like parents exploding and Ken exploding.
The only experience I ever had, there was a pretty mad parent calling about how their kid was sunburnt. And they were like, why didn't someone put sunscreen on him? I'm like, I don't know.
I'm so sorry your kid got burnt at camp, but other than that, they had the best time of their life.
Yeah, for sure. It is the best time of your life. That was pretty much probably the reason why I didn't ever want to leave Whistler.
Did you get a lot of time to snowboard while you were working at the camp, or is it just spent coaching most of the time? Because you did at that point get, I mean, really ahead in women's riding on the rails. I'm wondering how much did you get to spend a lot of time on the steel, or was most of it coaching?
No, I didn't want to coach because that would take up all the riding time. I was the lunch girl, so I would lug up the lunches up the T-bar to the lunch spot and then bring all the garbage down the mountain at the end of the day, and then I would drive. So I was working all around the clock and then snowboarding. I was pretty much like a zombie, but loving every minute of it. So I got a lot of snowboard time for sure.
Yeah, you could tell because for the next 4 or 5 years, I mean, I remember when I first moved to town, you had, I'm pretty sure I could be wrong, the McDonald's rail jam. You had one, and then there was like, yeah, I think that over the course of those 2 years, I just remember hearing your name as far as I associated you with being a rail rider when I first moved to town.
100%. And that's
which is crazy to think about because it's like now, I mean, similar to me, I mean, I mainly ride backcountry now, which I mean, moving to Whistler, eventually it snows enough on the rails and they're covered enough of the days of the year. You're like, well, maybe I'll go up peak and try that out. All these old people say that riding powder is fun.
It is fun. I don't get why you guys rubbing off the takeoffs and the jumps on a powder day.
Yeah, right.
Who does that?
I kind of like when the park gets covered in POW, and if you're up early enough, doing like a park POW lap is kind of my favorite lap. You know what I mean? That means the hip is like a natty hip, like in the backcountry, but it's kind of like firm under the POW, so you can still like hold an edge and stuff. It's kind of like my dream day is like a park powder day, which
you're a Blackcomb guy.
Yeah, I'm a Blackcomb guy, and I get a lot of shit for it because I feel like, I run into any of the, a few of the guys you mentioned in the morning. You run into yourself and Jeff and Sansalone and Rube and all these iconic Whistler figures, and everyone's like, we're going up peak and then we're gonna hike up this chute, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to the park.
Hey, to each in their own. That's the thing about Whistler is there's so many options, and snowboarding in general. Like I don't even think about that actually. Like that is a really good idea to go and ride. Yeah, for sure. That sounds epic. I'm just such a Whistler snob. I just always ride Whistler.
I'm Blackcomb snob. I just make fun of people who ride Whistler. I'm like, it's busier. I hate Whistler. Blackcomb for life. I don't even think I went to Whistler. I think I rode Whistler one day this whole year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I mean.
You missed all the pillow zones, the secret pillow zones.
Yeah, that's the thing is I also don't know where I'm going, which I feel like a lot of people who are probably listening to this, you go to wherever you're riding in Europe, you're riding at, any place that you don't know, you just can't find the stashes. And I've been in Whistler for almost 2 decades and I still can't find the stashes. And even if I do find the stashes, in order to find them next time, there's no way I can remember because the woods they look so consistent. You know what I mean? It's just like some people, like, you go with a few of the vets, they're like, oh, like Wes Makepeace. He's like, you just take a right here, obviously right by this tree with the broken branch. I'm like, how do you remember that?
I don't know. Jeff's good at that too. I'll be like, there's an app for that. I'm going to see what my last line was. And then
see, the app has been a big one for me as of late, because then you can pull out the phone and you're like, oh, there's where I am. I got to go left. And you can just see that that's where the pillow field is because it's the open area. It's genius. If you don't use that technique, I highly recommend it. There's also a few apps on your phone just for like if you're riding peak to just know where your friends are and stuff. So it's a little bit of not obviously like a beacon, but it's kind of nice to be like, okay, that person's moving.
That's good. What app is that?
I forget the name of it. One of my friends from Winnipeg actually got it, and I didn't even download it. He just showed me. He's like, look, I can see my friend moving.
Oh, that's.
And I was like, oh, sick. which is, it's kind of like it's kind of smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get pretty gung ho when it's a powder day, and they just kind of are like, oh, backcountry dangers disappear because I'm on mountain. You're like, no, not really.
Yeah, 100%. I had a really hilarious experience this year, just riding peak to creek, sending it, and I literally sent my head into a tree that was just like, it was a log that was across a creek, and I aired off this pillow and went pooka-choom.
Were you okay?
Yeah, I was okay.
Oh, but it could have been
It was
bad.
really hard. And I'm like, I've been down this run like 5,000 times. How did I not know about that?
Out of curiosity, those contests that you used to sweep up, what were the purses like? You know, is it $2,000? Like, or are you making 5K?
It wasn't like I was cashing in like the riders are now. Yeah, there was like $500, $1,500.
Harsh.
It wasn't until the US Open, it was like $10,000 for winning the Rail Jam.
Did you win the US Open Rail Jam?
Yeah, I think I won it 2 years in a row.
And did your sponsors match that 10K?
They did not. I was
brutal.
I was on the up and up at that point in time. I wasn't quite pro yet, but I think after I won the US Open overall, I won a car, I won a Volvo. I think that's when companies were like, all right, let's sponsor this girl.
And what year would that have roughly been?
05. That was 05.
Didn't you get Rookie of the Year in 2004?
Yeah. Yeah, I went from Rookie to Rider of the Year.
That is insane. So in 2004, you get Rookie of the Year for Snowboarder Mag or for Transworld?
I don't know.
You don't remember? Who cares?
Transworld.
Do you remember were you there for the awards, and what was the vibe like back then in 2004, when I would say that's maybe the peak of snowboarding? Like, as far as when people say the heyday, 2004 was a pretty good time. It was before 2008.
That was the heyday in our generation, but there was a couple more heydays before that, when in Teradikitis and Todd Richards' generation. They had like, I think maybe even bigger heydays, but it was a time. I remember when we went to.
The heyday has been slowly dissipating.
It's slowly dissipating. They need to bring it back. It needs to be more fun, injected. Like we would do the San Diego. It was like ASR, and it was like the San Diego trade show in the fall, where Transworld would host the awards. And so it was just a big party. And there was lots of funny stories from
I can only imagine.
Yeah. And like later on, when we had a full moon premiere, that was in like 2016. Actually, no, was it full moon? I don't think it was full moon. It was before that. It was in like 2008. Monster Energy rented a huge pirate ship, and we had a movie premiere on this pirate ship. It was in San Diego. We had Z-Trip, the DJ, come play. It was so funny, and it was also
that was 2008, so it's probably before the crash happened. So there was still money.
It was right on the cusp of that. Like, they were like, "Here's a bunch of cash. We're gonna get Z-Trip, blah blah blah." And then like, my parents were pretty proud of me at that point for making that movie, so they flew down and they just sat outside. They came to the boat, and they just sat at the dance floor and just watched us like hammer down so much booze and drinks. And then I'd look over, and my parents are just like,
"My daughter is nuts, but we are supportive."
But that was really fun. Yeah. So the Transworld Awards, it was a big deal back in the day to get one. That was kind of like a big stepping stone in kind of chasing that career of being a professional athlete.
Well, you knock it out of the park. 2004 Rookie of the Year, 2005 Rider of the Year. It's like, those are two dream awards, and you got them back to back. I wonder who else has gotten them back to back, because that's like, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody has, like maybe like a Torstein or something like that. But like, Jesus, like back to back, you must have been.
That was lucky.
pretty locked in 2006. You must have had your brands pretty dialed then and been at least, I hope, heavily supported at that point.
Yeah, at that point in 2006, I feel like I signed contracts, and yeah, I was definitely calling my parents to tell them that I'm totally good and I'm not going to come back to finish that engineering degree.
Can you give us a glimpse into what one of those contracts would have looked like back then? I mean, it was
well, my
15 years ago.
My first contract I signed was for $2,000 in travel and 2 snowboards, and that was with K2.
There you go.
Yeah, and then I think after I like had a little bit of success in the contest scene and started hitting the rails and ended up kind of like appearing in the magazines, I got some bigger contracts.
Yeah, I like it. You don't want to, okay, no numbers. It's cool. You're classy.
Well, I to be honest, I can't remember exactly how much I was making, but I was definitely making enough to, like, I remember I won the US Open and I had 20 grand cash, and my mom was at the US Open with me, so we both had 10 grand cash in our pockets each. And
to get over the border.
And then I came back and I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a condo. And I put that 20 grand right on to a condo back when they were giving out mortgages, like not really asking if you have contracts in place and whatnot, but somehow I was able to buy this condo with that US Open money.
In Whistler?
In Vancouver.
Oh, either way. Yeah. I mean, that's the lottery as far as buying real estate.
Yeah, totally. And like, yeah, so sponsorships at that point were like, it was enough to live on, and I was saving a little bit of money, but most part I was just spending it on my traveling around the world, trying to get to these contests. And
who would have told you to buy this condo with that $20,000? Are your parents like pretty savvy investors? Because that seems like a very smart play for someone to do. And like, you know, you typically hear about the people who are winning all these contests back then and getting all this money when they're 16 to 24, and most of them just blow it on, you know, whatever, it's gone. They buy a new truck, they look cool in it for 4 years, and it breaks down. To have the discipline and to make that play is crazy. Who would have told you to do that? Or was that yourself?
Nobody told me to do that, but my parents were always so financially savvy, or not savvy, like just like frugal. They were definitely like counting their pennies. And like my mom, I remember, would have this like notebook, and she would know exactly how much interest was left on her loans or whatever. She'd cross it out, like super obsessed with money, I guess, and saving it. And so like I did see at that point in time, everybody had new trucks and sleds. But I didn't even want to dip it. I was like, this is such a big amount of money that I can like invest in this condo, that this is what I should do. And so I actually bought an old sled that had 12,000 kilometers on it as my first sled in 2005.
Well, 1,200 or 12,000?
It had 12,000 kilometers on it. It was called the Turtle, and I used that sled for 5 years.
So you bought your first sled when, 2005, you said?
Or maybe it was 2003 or 4.
Wow.
Yeah,
you were in the backcountry game early. that is
on the Turtle, not going on your Turtle. Far. Yeah.
Damn, Leanne, that is so sick.
Yeah. So we would go to Callahan back when Callahan was open, and there would just be so many whoops. And having one of those old sleds, that sled was the year 2000. So, I mean, these things had 0 suspension, and I was just like, wow, I mean, I didn't care like how hard it was on the body, but yeah, I can't believe that we did all those whoops. And for people that don't know, are just like caused by snowmobiles on a track. It's just wow, like
ginormous. It's like a mogul field on a sled. It's the worst thing ever. If it's over a kilometer long, they're like, 3 feet deep, and they're every 2 feet.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's just like doing a billion squats with a heavy backpack on. And I'm assuming you didn't have board racks back then that were attached to the sled.
No, we would just put them in our backpack.
Yeah, it was probably just horizontal running in your
Yeah.
bag, or vertical if you're a first timer. And who was the crew?
Well, I bought the sled and Jeff was like, who's gonna take you? I'm like, you are.
And are you guys kind of flirting at this point, or are you just leading them on? Like, you can take me.
We were hanging out. We were together. We were for sure together. And then, but he was also like kind of pursuing his pro career at that point. He was, I think maybe on the pro team for Option Snowboards. And he was just filming with Kevin Sansalone. So yeah, I would get to go on the sled with Jeff just on the days off that he had where he wasn't filming. That's
how many women were out there back then? Or if you're pulling into the lot, like I know that Victoria and Tara and stuff like that were riding, that type of terrain.
Yeah, Annie and Victoria had sleds back then. I think Annie was like the only other girl that had a sled in my area.
That is so sick.
Yeah. Damn. I saw them in the backcountry once. I was at Callahan and I had gotten stuck on the turtle right before a big climb. And I was like, oh no, there's Victoria and Annie. And they pull up to me and Annie's like, why would you do that? And then they just kept going. And they left
that sounds
me there.
like Annie. That was amazing. And okay, you and Annie are great friends now. I'm good friends with her too. Back then, was there a little bit of tension between you two, or are you guys close friends and you guys are supportive of each other? Or if there's only two sharks in the water, you know what I mean? I feel like sometimes it can get a little bit, Yeah. Was there any tension, or was it easy? And
I felt completely excluded when I was.
I like the honesty. Here we go. This is what we want to hear.
When I was at that moment, I was like, oh man, I suck at sledding. I'm going to have to get way better to be like hanging out with that crew. So at that point, I think Annie was like, yeah, she probably needs to like learn how to sled and do her own thing first before I was going to be even thought of to come along and join their crew for sure. But that was my goal. And I just majorly screwed up right in front of them. So it took a few years for me to get that respect.
Well, probably
Annie was like, let's go sledding.
Probably instilled some drive in you too. You know what I mean? I feel like those like low points, or I don't know if low is a great term, but I had a similar experience, getting on the trail, and I want to become this backcountry snowboarder, and, Arrow Niemela sleds by, and whoever else, Jake Welch and Pat Moore, and everybody's in Whistler when I was trying to figure this out, which was much later than you. But I'm stuck on the side and in Devin's rental sled, and I just suck, and probably Dustin Craven or something zips by and goes like, what are you doing, you idiot? How did you get stuck there? We're on the cat track. This is so embarrassing.
No, it's so humbling.
But there was something inside of me that it felt shitty, but at the same time, I was like, that's what I needed, that to get the motivation to be like, no, this sucks. But everybody that just sledded by you at one point was just like you. They've just logged more hours doing this, so of course they're going to be better than you. Like, everyone's been in your shoes, but it's hard when you see everybody doing something that you're not capable of to realize that everyone's been where you're at. They've just 100%. Put more time in there.
Yeah, sledding is such a humbling sport, and I mean, sport, we just use it to get around to the mountains to snowboard. So a mode of transportation, it's so hard. But like, when we started, those sleds were terrible. And now, like, look where they are now. Like, they can take us to places that we never thought we could go to. So I think the learning curve is a lot faster on a snowmobile these days. And there's a lot more users in the backcountry, where that helps too, because you can go out to Brandywine and there's 200 sled trucks and there's trails everywhere. When someone puts in a first track up something, it makes it 1,000 times easier to get up. So I think the accessibility with the snowmobile has gotten a lot easier, but it definitely takes that humbling commitment and determination to get through to like, yeah, be on the same level as everyone else in your crew. You don't want to be that like person that can't hang. So yeah, it's an
Yeah, there's
awful
gotta,
feeling to feel like you're, bringing the crew down a bit, but you kind of have to go through that. And then that's like, that's the part about like for me getting on a sled for 15 years now. I brought out Spencer this year, and that was awesome to see her go through those same stages. But then it was just like she had it so fast. It was like no big deal.
yeah, she's
Like,
she having a mentor that has been in your shoes before, that that also has the flexibility to have like patience, because someone like yourself is not like, you're like, I have all these expectations for my sponsors and you're slowing me down and stuff like that. Like you're going out with her and you're like, you can set aside some time to be like, okay, today might be kind of slow because Robin hasn't figured all this out, but I'm willing to be patient because I want my friend to learn how to do this. And like you said there, the snowmobiles 20 years ago didn't work the same as they do now. Now you can kind of point and aim and then throttle, and you'll probably, even if you suck, make it at least halfway up the hill, and then you can hike the rest with your sled rolling down.
Yeah. And the beauty of like the Whistler backcountry is that most of the like the way the terrain is, it's so rolly, like it's pretty safe. You're not going to be doing these death defying hill climbs on your sled. If you're like, there's these moments where you're going to have to maybe take 2 or 3 times to try and get up there. And then if you can't, somebody in your crew is going to help you. So yeah, the beauty of that is always go with someone. At least one person needs to be like, know what they're doing.
Totally. And your mentors back then, you said, would have been Jeff and Sansalom.
Yeah, mainly Jeff. Like
Stick.
Yeah. Seriously, Jeff, I owe everything to Jeff. Like Jeff and Brendan, who is Jeff's brother. But I went out with them and they helped me like not be scared of riding over convex rolls, and like not just the snowmobiling, all the snowboarding stuff in the backcountry. Jeff would always be like, I just don't understand. You're so scared to hit this like 40-foot jump out here, but you'll hit a 60-foot jump in the park, no problem. So there's definitely like a learning curve of just feeling the vastness of the backcountry and then getting comfortable. And I think with that, it just takes time.
Totally. What do you have any recommendations for a young Leanne who wants to venture out into the backcountry? And how do you even start? How do you even begin to tackle that? It's already super difficult as a guy, but I can only imagine that, like, how complicated that would feel to be a woman being like, I want to get out in the backcountry, just because there's even less opportunity, even though there already is very limited opportunity for someone else to get out there. I could only imagine what it would feel like. Do you have any advice for that kind of girl?
Yeah, well, I definitely bugged Jeff, and I was very lucky to find a mentor who was willing to help, because it's a big time commitment to take somebody who's just learning out there. But I mean, if you don't have that kind of person that you can go to, you can always go sign up for a snowmobile class. And like in Whistler, there's these programs where you can go for a weekend. Chris Brown and like She Shreds. There's like women only snowmobile lessons, and then there's also like mixed groups. And I've noticed that there are a ton of women like in the parking lot learning how to sled with like some guides, which is awesome. So that's cool to see. And then I would say like also another thing that is pretty important is to think about education. So like AST ones, even like operations level 1 or search and rescue courses. Like through the Canadian Avalanche Association, they have a lot of courses that you can take to learn about the backcountry and the risks out there, because shit can go sideways pretty quickly. And it is comforting, and like it gives you more confidence when you're out there. You're like, oh yeah, this person broke their leg. Like I can bandage them up and we'll get them out on the sled.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of avenues to dial in when you go out there. And I think that it used to be part of the pro snowboarder recipe to buy a truck and a sled and venture into the backcountry and, do some contests in the rails. There was like a formula from, 95 until 2018 on pretty like, this is how you do it,
for sure.
And now I feel like there's a lot of freedom to ride however you want to ride. But if you want to venture out to the backcountry to ride like the next Leanne or Mikey Rents or, Aero Nimala or whatever, if that's like what you want to ride is like jumps and step downs, and to just have this whole surreal of an experience of being out in the middle of the mountains and, watch the sunrise and sunset come out there. It's like this amazing thing that I think that if you really want to venture into it, it's worthwhile. I mean, I've committed my life to it, and so have you. And the experiences and the things that I've seen out there, it's some of the most fond memories and best times I've ever shared with my friends, without a doubt. But there are easier ways if you want to go into like a split boarding and you're not like trying to do this on a, trying to be a little bit more frugal. You could get a split setup, which will last you years, and it's still a great way to access, fresh powder. But those, that importance of, an AST1 and backcountry knowledge needs to travel more than just to sledders and people who are, it's like, doesn't matter if you're going out splitting and you're just going to ride like a small pillow field, to people who are obsessed with riding powder on the mountain. I think there's a responsibility for all people to just, if you love powder, you have a responsibility to perfect your craft, you could say, if you're going to keep doing this, because if anything goes wrong and you could have done something more right by just taking a course, you're going to really kick yourself for that.
Totally. And like, I think it was ingrained in our culture in snowboarding to not even worry about what risk. Like,
yeah, totally. Go big or go home.
Yeah, totally.
Don't be a wuss.
Yeah. And I just started doing these courses in the last, say, 3 or 4 years, where I could have been doing them since the start. So yeah, I think there's a lot more resources available these days where you can learn a lot more and be safe than just winging it.
Well, we're helping by being, snowboarders, normalize the fact that younger people who want to venture into the backcountry should take that responsibility. Where, yes, it was in magazines when I was growing up, but there was no emphasis or anything like that I ever really felt when I first moved to Whistler on safety, especially when I first started venturing out into the backcountry and riding, just hiking around in the back bowls of our local mountains. I was never like bringing a beacon probe and shovel. Sometimes one of us would have 2 of those items and then somebody would have none, and we'll be like, we'll share all the tools with this avalanche detector. It beeps, right? If there's an avalanche, like I just knew that if I rented a beacon, I was safe for the day. Like, I thought it was going to like put up some magic, like a dome around me in case an avalanche came and just feed me air. It was like until my 3rd year or 4th year of being out in the backcountry, I was like, oh shit, these are real and they're dangerous.
Yeah. And actually they're the kind of difficult to use.
100%.
So yeah, Jeff and I did this, and Marie, we did this search and rescue course in Whistler this year. And it was called AVSAR, if anyone wants to know or look into it. But it was a really great course because it was basically just knowing, it was all centered around the Barryvox avalanche beacon.
Yeah.
And it was basically just teaching you, if all else fails, like you can use the analog version, and like figuring out these little like boxes to search for people. It was so useful, and I wish they would offer that to people without I think there might be some prerequisites to it, but maybe not. But it was really good course to learn in and out how to use my beacon. I don't think I've used it that much until this year with that
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And especially you taking and being such a mentor and a leader for your whole group and the community at large. It's nice to know that somebody that loves being in the mountains and has such a big following is learning more about the mountains to kind of share those important things, because they get easily overlooked. And I mean, even Pat Moore is a great example of somebody who's giving back to the snowboard community, like the pro snowboard community, by having his amazing course at Baldface, teaching professional snowboarders more about how to navigate and limit their risks in the backcountry, as well as taking a first aid course. So pat on the back to Pat. But
yeah, that's
I think
probably
that he
one
doesn't.
of the best courses out there for a professional snowboarder.
It trickles down though. It like ripples. So like Pat teaches these pros, and then the pros all have like a way bigger, they value safety a lot higher, especially with a lot of these people open up and share their experiences about being in avalanches or losing somebody that they love in the avalanche and extracting the body and not like all these things. So you really leave that course feeling like, damn, like I don't want this to happen to my friends. So then you tell your friends who don't have the they're not a pro, so they're not going to be at the Pat Moore course, but you tell your group when you go home, your small community, that it's important. And then all the pros in your hometown and the AMs, they all take it more seriously, and then they tell their friends, and it just turns into this giant ripple effect of everybody in the snowboard community caring about safety more. And I mean, there's nothing worse than being out in the backcountry and seeing a reckless group that doesn't know what they're doing, because they put your life at risk just like theirs. Because if something goes wrong, you're going to want to help them. Who knows if you're all going to freeze to death? And it's like, you want to be dialed if you're going to be venturing out there.
100%. Yeah. Safety is definitely important. And I think like you've been out in the backcountry a lot of times when shit's gone sideways and you've had to save a friend or whatever, like been out in many situations with like broken limbs and that kind of thing. Like Annie broke her leg, and we had made some terrible, dumb, like easy mistakes. And then luckily we had another crew that kind of came to the rescue for that. But just the more you learn about, and the more you go through like your own personal experience, it's humbling to know that, yeah, it's just so important to go through the motions before an event actually happens. Because when I was standing filming with Jake Blauvelt and we saw Victor Delarue get into a massive avalanche, I knew what I was going to do. Like it was in slow motion because I had practiced at that Baldface event, and that was just so clutch to know and have the extra confidence. Okay, this is what's going to happen in this order with our rescue. But then he eventually popped out at the end, and we didn't have to do a search. But
and like, how guilty would you have felt if you, especially being a veteran and somebody that the whole community looks up to, how guilty would you feel in that moment if you see that massive avalanche pop and you're like, I didn't go to the Baldface course, I didn't take my AST, I actually don't know what to do. Like, and then you're looking around, and then one guy's taken an AST course 5 years ago, so he kind of forgets, and then one person kind of knows. It feels good when collectively you're out there with a group of people that you can truly rely on, because everybody has felt that need and that responsibility to be dialed, because you're out there with people who want to go home to their families at the end of the day. It's like we're snowboarding. It's like, yeah, it's supposed to be fun, and yeah, you want to push it because it's fun to push the limits of not only yourself but what's capable on a snowboard, but you want to be going home at the end of the day, and to know that you have a dialed crew. I mean, even if you're the one in the avalanche, knowing that this is out of your control, you are in the avalanche now, but you have, let's say an Avi bag. If you're going to ride something big, you have your helmet on because you were riding a big line with some exposure, and you know that your crew at the bottom is going to do everything they can to get you out. So you have that feeling of a little bit of comfort. It would be the worst if you are in an avalanche and you're like, oh shit, I went out with my loose friends today. 2 of them are super stoned. One of them doesn't have a beacon. Jeff said he forgot his shovel in the morning, but I said it was all good.
Like, yeah, it would be the worst.
Let's talk about that avalanche for a second there, because I think there was a little bit of backlash on North Face for posting that in their movie, at least I heard, which I thought it was good to let people know that avalanches happen. It's like being held under a wave for a long time, or it's just freak shit happens, or you're skateboarding and a car hits you. It's like some things are just out of your control and they're a part of what we deal with. And to neglect that they're real, I think kind of isn't where brand should be. It's like if our athletes are out there in Alaska and in Whistler and then thick of it, and they're making an action sports movie to promote North Face product, it's like, hey, listen, like this is real. This is what they dealt with. And hopefully there's some takeaway as far as like, oh, all of our athletes are dialed. And that's one of the reasons why this person's okay. Obviously some luck has to come into play when there's an avalanche as big as Victor's.
Yeah, totally. I like, so to touch on that backlash or whatever, like, I understand watching the movie, you could hear a pin drop. Like it was super scary. And it really like just sent it to home to how scary avalanches can be, because they had this compelling, insane footage of these big avalanches. And there was talk about taking it out altogether and not even including it and having more of like an uplifting, like fun shred film. But I think it was up to the writers in the end. And the thought was, no, this is the reality of big mountain riding. There are risks. And at that time, we did accept the risk. We knew there was a storm slab. Did we think it was going to pop? Like it did. Like every one of us got into an avalanche during that shoot. We finally did step back. So, but we ended up with this crazy footage that it was like, we don't want to shelve that. And we also didn't have like a ton of follow-up footage to showcase like the story around it. So when they edited it, they added in the voiceover of what was actually happening. We were on our radios and Gabe was like, do we have eyes on him? And then that's when all the animations came in. And it was kind of trying to depict like what was going on through our heads before we would execute a search. And then it went into this ominous, like eerie, kind of like a death scene, which was super creepy. But I think that was like the Sherpa's artistic view of showcasing the reality of the mountains. And I think it's important to showcase that. It's not just always like fine and dandy and like escaping avalanches, like no big deal. I think the most important thing that came out of that film was people started talking about it. And so it started a conversation. And, you know, I've done a couple avalanche talks from that incident at the Safe As clinics. And I just think it's an important experience to share. And yeah, if you want to go check it out, it's called Defiance and it's on the North Face YouTube channel, but it's definitely shocking to see us go through what we went through. And luckily everything was okay, but it could have easily not been okay.
I mean, that was yours, if I'm correct, was first.
Yeah, and it wasn't all on the same day. It's edited like it was like boom, boom, boom. It was different days.
Yeah, take us through your personal experience, because and what that line was like, and that go through that day, because I mean that was a big day for snowboarding. I remember getting home and getting a text message and being like, dude, Leanne almost got in like and the snowboard community, there's a small group of people. I feel like that those kind of text messages echo really quick through. Mm-hmm. And it's so then like, you know, somebody texts me a little bit later and everyone's talking about snow conditions and everyone's asking each other what's, you know, and it's nice that those conversations kind of flow fast and freely, because it makes people who are going to go out the day after navigate their day totally differently. And I mean, like, who knows, maybe the day after I was out with Sean and I don't know, Rasman or something like that, or Solers, and they're like, oh, we're going to ride a line. They're like, oh, you know, what happened? We don't know what happened to Leanne. We just knew there was an avalanche on this aspect, and then maybe somebody doesn't decide to do that. And so I remember getting down and being like, holy shit. And then seeing the video about a week later or whatever. I don't even know how maybe I saw Gabe or something like that. And I was like, oh, like my heart just sank, because it's like, it wasn't one of those little ones where you're like, oh, that person, like, I was like, you know, the snowboard community is a close community. And you're like, wow, like that could be anyone. That could be me. That could be, and it wasn't like you did anything wrong. And you just did everything right, as far as you put every ounce of your energy into that line and made it out. So yeah, maybe just touch base on, like, you know, that day.
Feeling. So, yeah, I mean, so I just signed with North Face, and they were like, we have this epic opportunity. You're going to ride with Victor Delarue and Jake Bovelt, and we're going to film with the Sherpas in Whistler. I was like, where do I sign up? Like, kill me now. This is the best thing ever. And so I was super excited to be with that crew, intimidated for sure. But the first thing that it was like, we had no snow. We were deciding whether we should maybe like go to Alaska instead. And then I think the crew was like, no, I think Whistler's going to turn around. Sure enough, we had like 45 centimeters of snow right before our shoot. So we knew there was going to be a storm slab because it hadn't snowed and it was sunny and cold for like a month. And I had read the avalanche report that morning, and it said that it was moderate, but beware of the storm slab anywhere from 30 to 45 down. And that's centimeters. And so I was like, all right, like not a big deal. And then we're flying around and we show up at these like big morning spines. And I was like, whoa, okay, pretty big line. I was definitely nervous because of what I had read that morning. And so I picked a line that didn't have any exposure. I was like, if something goes, like, this is going to be fine. And so I rode my first line, and I barely edged into it. I was like, I'm just going to ride this as fast. Like, I kind of knew, I accepted the risk of the storm slab releasing, but I was like, I'm just going to like ride this really fast and see what happens. And then I got a false sense of security because I rode it, nothing happened. We all rode a line successfully, great. So then I jumped onto another line and I cut across the slope, super slow, like digging in, doing these turns. And there's like this little thing to ollie and pop off, and I ollied, and I was like, whoa. And I land, and then out of both peripherals, boom, the whole thing just like pop. And I was like, oh no, this is like, I know exactly what's happening, but I also knew exactly where I needed to go, because I was pretty nervous about the avalanche conditions. I just didn't realize the power of a size 2 avalanche that was only maybe 35 centimeters deep. But it felt big, and it felt like I was in this waterfall. And then the end of the avalanche, is it the Bergs? Not, what's it called? Anyways, the end, it made this big jump because all the snow was just like flowing over. So I had to like I straight lined it. I had an airbag. I didn't pull it because I was still on my feet. And I was thinking, if I could just kind of 45-degree angle it and get out underneath the rock, the snow's kind of going to the left, I'm going to kind of go to the right. And I somehow stayed on my feet, and my heart was pounding, but it was the one time in my life where I thought that everything lined up in my head. Like I had like beast mode come out, and I just was like, stay on your board, keep your nose up. And so in the footage, you can see my nose is like, I'm just wheeling across the snow because I was trying to keep my nose up, but I was also airborne because I kept shooting off these waterfall jumps that I just couldn't see, like hit where the avalanche stopped, and it would just send you in the air. So I got sent in the air like 2 or 3 times, and it all happened so fast, and I got out of it, and everybody was like, whoa, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, that was crazy. My heart was just like, so in my head, that was day one. And I definitely stepped back after that because of the risk. I just didn't think it was like worth the risk to step into some bigger lines. And I think maybe like Victor and Jake not being in it weren't as phased. And so that, I guess, prompted, some experiences for them where they got into some bigger lines and things popped as well. But from that moment on, I was like, I'm gonna ride some shorter slopes where there's not as much risk. But yeah, it was scary, and I'm so happy that I was okay. And I also was like so grateful that it's like study lines and choose lines that are beautiful, aesthetic, but don't have 1,000-foot cliff that you're going to roll off if something happens. And also we stepped to like pretty big lines knowing the risk that day. And that's something that we could have changed. We could have ridden some smaller slopes where, the power of the avalanche was it was crazy. I definitely would have gotten messed up if I tumbled in that, for sure.
Oh, you were saying that you went beast mode, and you went beast mode. It's like you just in the shot, it's like spidering the entire face, and it's just spider cracking under your board and in front of you and your left and your right. And yeah, you bossed out of that. It was like power landing. I don't know. I was just like the whole time watching it, even though I knew you were already okay, I was like, stay strong, power through it, come on. And then like you just charge out of the bottom, and it's like, thank God you had the experience you did.
Yeah.
I didn't think to be able to ride like that. Like you had to go into beast mode, and you had to put every skill you've ever learned on a snowboard into your riding at that moment. Cause even like one taco in that, it's like, I always use the I don't know, not analogy, but like when I'm in the backcountry with my small shovel and I take one scoop and it's full, that's heavy. And it's one scoop of snow. So when an entire face is dropping down in snow, that's like hundreds of thousands of scooping of snow, just tackle it. Like it's crazy to think of how much snow that is. Like, and that's moving. And it's like, once you put, 1,000 cars of snow stacked up behind you that's moving down, you can only imagine how that's going to feel if it hits you in the back.
I know. And it was hitting me. And I was scary. At first, I was kind of gaining speed and getting out of it. And in the end, I have my GoPro and you see these big snowballs. It was like the avalanche is just trying to chuck snowballs, and they were like, pew, 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 pew. You can see it in the slow-mo footage. It was wild. It was a wild experience, and I just didn't think that, I never anticipated having the strength to fight my way out of something like that, but very happy that I did. And I think it just comes down to picking lines that are conservative, where, there's no major terrain traps and stuff like that. And this line is something after I got back home, I was talking to people and they're like, oh, that's a repeat offender. That always goes. And I was like, oh, I didn't
exactly
know.
But you didn't know. But I also think it's you don't want to look at a face or even a slope on your local mountain when you're riding POW and go, that doesn't slide, that'll be fine. Because I've definitely noticed from our snowmobile access and even just riding on Whistler and Blackcomb, just anyone's home mountain, so many people who've been there for so long put up this oh, that zone never slides. And it's a lot of those times we'll say that, and then we'll come back at the end of the day and we'll be like, oh my God, it slid big. And it's that's the area that's not supposed to slide.
Totally.
Or we were venturing out this year to the left of Rutherford, and we were filming with this legendary filmer, Aaron Leyland. And he had this idea to go up this new zone, and we kind of went there and we roll over the backside of this mountain, and the entire backside of this mountain had slid. It went so far, like kilometers. And it was like where you would have the heli pickup, and like if you were doing a shoot with like the North Face, all the tents would be there and people would be serving hot cocoa. Everybody would have died. Like it
Oh
was
no.
insane. You're like, you have to realize when you're out there that, you got to read. There's so many things. You have to read the weather. You have to talk to the local people. You have to go out there and feel, because the weather report is generalized for entire area, but I'm sorry, but you can't get an exact report for each aspect on each mountain. It's like you said, the avalanche that day was moderate. Well, to me, moderate can be moderate extreme and moderate really mellow.
Yeah, totally. Moderate still means that you can get into some trouble, but yeah, it's definitely hard for someone to know what the risk is if they don't go out. It really does help to go out as much as possible, and then you kind of feel the flow of the snow and the layers and the conditions. And then if you don't know, yeah, you're gonna have to trust the avalanche bulletins, but it is definitely different in different elevations and aspects, for sure.
So you started a production company, Runway Films, way back in the day in the early 2000s, and you made a La La Land and a lot of films that were, let me see here. There's another one that you filmed that was
See What
really
I See.
sick. Yes. See What I See, which I remember that one because I was a really big fan of Natasha Zurich's riding back then. And she had this back seven on the sunset jump. And I was like, holy shit, she's so sick. Because I had just gone on a trip with her, and my first editorial trip ever was with Snowboard Canada. And I went on a trip with Natasha and Priscilla Levesque. And I remember, I'm pretty sure that was the same year that she had that part. And you started this. Why did you start, like, at a young age? You start this women's snowboard camp. Did you ever do anything before that? What is this? You were an entrepreneur. If you think of an idea, it doesn't really seem like you sit on it for too long. You act on it, which is actually like a really admirable quality, because I feel like a lot of people come up with a really great idea and then they sit on it for, and then they almost convince themselves to take the path of least resistance, which is it's just easier to say that that's kind of hard and difficult. Like, you've tackled some huge hurdles, like starting that Runway Films.
I think it all comes down to I'm quite impulsive.
There you go.
I wouldn't say I'm like, think about these grand ideas. It's like, this idea is sick, let's do it. And then I just start doing it. And then, like, once other people are involved, you can't go back. So
then you have the pressure.
Yeah, that's seriously how I think life has worked for me so far. Like, even with the Saltwater Retreat, like, all these little projects become big projects, but it's just like a partial being naive to it and then mostly being impulsive. But yeah, like with Runway Films, that was basically started because Amber Stackhouse and Fabia, who had produced 2 films previously to Runway Films, they were kind of burnt out. And so I was like, we got to keep this ball rolling. And that's how Runway Films was born. And then once again, I looked to Jeff and asked him if he could help me. And Jeff definitely was a big help with the first 2 films that I.
Those were huge films for a lot of up and coming girls. You had mentioned earlier Raywin Reed. That was like her part. She would always been like this like prodigy girl from Calgary. Grew up riding with like Nash and Cale Hill, 2 insanely talented snowboarders that from COP that breeds absolute beasts of boarders. Yeah. I mean, Jed Anderson, etc. from there. And she was just the best rail rider as far as a young girl coming up. She was insane. She was so good. And yeah, you gave a spotlight to a lot of girls back then that wouldn't have had there was Sandbox, and there was all these like amateur guy films, and there's so many of them. And then there was just no all girl films back then. No. And that was like, you guys, was there an all girl film before like 2004?
Lauren Graham made a film maybe previously to '04. There was definitely several films that were made by women in the history of snowboarding, like in California. Yeah, I don't remember the names of them, and I don't even know if I've 100% seen them, but I knew that there was other films. But it was just the case of I didn't want to be a part of Skids. That was the local film company. They were just showcasing women in, not the best light. That wasn't the direction I really wanted to be like putting myself in. So I just simply started doing runway films because it was at that point in time I had met all the other girls on the contest scene, and I felt like there was a community and we all wanted to go and have fun filming outside of the contest scene. So it was just kind of the natural evolution of making films and just doing it. So yeah.
And from your camp, you're probably not thinking that this is going to be that lucrative, because let's be honest, starting a snowboard film, kind of isn't. So did you feel like this came from that's really amazing of you to be like, this is missing in snowboarding. I'm not going to make a lot from it, but it'll be fun. It will be, because starting a snowboard film is a lot of work. I mean, I watched Kevin Sansalone make them. I watched my friend Rusty make them. It seems like this easy adventure to embark on, like 8 riders that their sponsor dollars to just like, we're going to film a movie. It's easy. It's like there's, as soon as the season's over and you're done filming and someone drops off the hard drives and they're like, all right, good luck. Like that's a lot of work there.
It's a thankless job for sure. But the lasting impression you get from watching a film is like none other. Like that's what dreams are made of for thousands of people. Like I wouldn't even be sitting here if it wasn't for Mac Dog and like Transworld and Snowboarder, like showcasing all the best talent. Like movies were what I lived by. Like I watched The Garden and like all the snowboard movies back in the day. I was obsessed. And so to be in a film, I mean, I didn't think it was like that crazy cred doing it myself. Like I think the dream is to like be in a film that someone else makes, because it is so much work, but it was also so rewarding and fun. And I don't know, I just think that like it's important to have that timepiece of our culture, like that can sit on the shelves forever, that you can reflect back on. And I hope like films continue in snowboarding. It's so important for sure.
Well, thank God you said that you're an impulsive person. It would have taken, most people would have thought the idea, I should make a snowboard film. I'm going to invite all my girlfriends that I did an amazing I have all of the connections. I have brands that sponsor. I have the best friends that all want the same thing. But then you would think the logistics of it and be like, that's a lot of work. But you were just like, this is sick, we should do this. And then you just started it, and then there was no turning back. And I'm imagining after the first year ended, that the year ends, everybody's stoked, everyone who had a great part probably got paid more. And then everyone kind of looks at you come September like, hey, what do I tell my brands? Are you going to make another film? And you're like, I guess. Like,
yeah, we did that. Yeah, you get guilted into the second one. And then by the second year, you're like, oh, okay, I'm so burnt out. I'm always impressed by the filmmakers that, just keep making films year after year, because it is a lot of work, and it's so rad, and it's so important to have these films available. But yeah, there is also a point in time where if you are an athlete and you're also trying to do all the producing and that kind of thing, it can definitely get in the way of progressing your own snowboarding as an athlete. So I got burnt out after the 2 years of making films with Jeff, and it was taking a toll on our relationship. We broke up, then we got back together. I mean, we might have broken up for like 3 weeks, but just working with a partner is really hard. And so after that, we called it quits on working together, and Full Moon was my baby on my own. But I had a lot of good help, and I surrounded myself with like really good, like amazing creatives, editors.
that seems pretty stressful. You know, you're being a pro snowboarder and you're not like a low tier pro that doesn't have a lot of responsibility and obligations. You know what I mean? You have to be at catalog shoots. You have to produce this video part. You're busy all season. If you get injured, you have to rehab, etc. And then to throw on top of that, a full on production company that not up and coming AMs are trying to make a name for themselves. Like, you are making a production company with top tier riders who need you to pull through or their careers are over, because snowboarding is just like one of those, especially back then, it's pretty cutthroat. Like, you didn't have a good year, you're done. So, you know, and then there's these girls who are relying on you to pull through in this video. And I think, like, as far as I know, and as the release of these videos came out, they did get a lot of clout, and they definitely helped a lot of girls, and they just inspired a lot of girls. Like, we keep bringing it back to Dara, but and another one of my girlfriends, Jill, like, I knew, and Callie Vanuler and Amanda Scheller and all the girls that I grew up with, that really changed their lives. I think, to have like an all girl film, to be like, holy shit, we can do this too. Like, it's not out of reach, you know? And I think it put a lot of light and a lot of emphasis on, like, chase this dream too. Like, it's for you too. You know what I mean? Where, you know, back then it was pretty, when I grew up, it was 99% males snowboarding. And then like, and I mean, you could put that into outside of like a white male, you know what I mean? There just wasn't that many people snowboard. And now it's like, people need to realize that it's the funnest thing ever to snowboard, and to get more people to snowboard is just a better way. Yeah, it's the best thing ever, and you want to share it with people. You know what I mean? It's such a special thing. Snowboarding provides this like experience that you can't get from anything else. I think I always hear people being like, oh, skateboarding's better and surfing. It's like, you go and snowboard and ride slush, the best slushy day ever on the mountain, the best time ever. You ride a good pow day, the best groomer. It's like, there's so many different conditions that make snowboarding such a unique and amazing experience that you want more people to experience that. And I think that your films did that for thousands of girls around the world. And I look at someone like Dara now, who's dedicated her whole life to snowboarding, and now she's in Jess Kamira's project.
I know.
But you probably inspired Jess to do this, and now Jess is inspiring a whole new generation with the Uninvited and even the Too Hard crew, etc. That's gone now. But I mean, there's just so many girls that the ripple effect is so profound when you do something that's like a non-selfish act, that you don't really see the benefit or reward immediately. But, you know, if you really look at it, it's like, holy shit, like, you've from your impulsive actions, you've had a ripple effect that's been profound on the snowboard community. So,
well, it's all surrounded around fun, and that's the thing. Like, a little bit of work in the summer, it's just so worth it. Like, to see the ripple effect of someone like Jess Kamira take the leadership and make a film for all those other up and comers. Like, you think sometimes, like, you know, people sitting in the office, like, where are all the next up and comer females? Like, where are they? They don't exist, but they do exist. People just have to provide opportunity for them. And so the films that Jess has made have been like insane and incredible for our industry, for her to bring up the next generation. Like, it's just so eye-opening to see that the sport is in good hands and these girls are ripping, and hopefully that next ripple will be someone like Ilfa, who takes the reins and makes something again for the next generation.
And and the coolest thing is, like, you know, you got together with all your close friends back in the day, and you guys had Runway Films. Like, Jess isn't gonna replicate that. She's gonna take the things she loved from it and take her own spin on it, and then it just makes it. I love how Jess's Uninvited is a little bit more like edgy and more Jess, you know what I mean? And it's cool to see somebody take it the way they want it and like kind of take the reins. And it's like, I think that, I mean, there is no right or wrong answer. And I mean, there's no right or wrong way to snowboard, but it's really cool when somebody new takes the reins and decides to, like, this is what I'm going to do with it. And this is how, and I think both of you did a really good job on marketing the personalities in the movies. You know what I mean? Like showcasing like this person's fun, this person's goofy, this person's the more serious person, like et cetera, from like Desiree to somebody like, you know, Jamie Anderson, completely different. But when you make a production and a movie, you have the opportunity to help like market that person's personality through this like film. It's like such a cool thing to make a film and be like, this is this person. And some people are really good at doing that, and other people, you know, struggle a little bit on like, but when a filmmaker can showcase somebody's personality and make that like really transparent through the film, it's something so cool. You're like, that's what that person's about. They're like that, you know, and it's never fully true, you know, it's just, it's a very small snippet into that person's life, but it is cool. And
it's so great because I mean, someone like you who's really funny and like also has really good style, you can like curate this film video part that is so much like so unique to you. And I think like back in the day for me, like the robot food movies with Travis Parker and all of the, and like David Benedict and all of the personalities that were coming with that, it was just like, how do I be a part of that? It's the fun that you're attracted to. You're not attracted to these films because these people are doing gnarly stuff. Like maybe you are, that part of it is, but like for me, I love the personality. And I think most people just like love feeling like they can connect to this person, whether they're an epic snowboarder or not.
Big time. Chris Grenier, who I just had on the podcast, said that exact same thing. It's like, it's the personality that makes you like want to be like that person more than anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's no point in trying to like not be yourself while you're snowboarding, which is, I say it a lot on the podcast, but I wish I knew that when I was younger, because I just constantly was like, I wanted to spin faster, because spinning fast when I was a kid means that you win contests and you're the best at the hill because you can spin the most. But I was never that good at that. And I always just struggled riding the way that I was good at riding. And I tried to constantly ride like the people I thought I should be riding like. And I wish at a young age, I was just like, no, like the way I'm riding is cool. Like I like lip slides and board slides. Like I don't have to learn nose press 180s just because everyone at my hill is doing them right now. You know, it's like, do you, and it reflects so well in the footage. And if your footage looks like you're riding the way you want to ride, it just translates really well in film too.
100%. I think a lot of people deal with, I guess, comparisons and like not truly listening to themselves and doing what they want, whether it's in their jobs, they're working some job they are doing because their parents told them that this is what they're going to be. Like my dad told me I was going to be an engineer. And I'm like, no. But I went that route because he said I should do that. And I did all of that, but like at some point you have to listen to your truth and just like live your truth. And I've definitely gone through that point in time in snowboarding too, where I'm like, oh, I should do this. I should do more slopestyle contests because I think that's what people are doing. That's the way to the Olympics. That's the way to a successful career.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to a successful career. The way to a successful career is staying true to yourself and like bringing up your strengths and highlighting and accentuating those. And like for you, Jody, you've definitely come into your own with your style, and just like through riding and all the videos that I see, like you're definitely doing what you want to do and styling and poking things out, and people really appreciate that when they see you ride. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons that kids should, if I could tell my 20-year-old self, don't worry about the rest, what everybody else is doing. Like snowboard how you want to. If you want to ride lines, then ride lines. Don't feel like you have to hit like a 60-foot step down because Anna Beeman's doing that.
I know, totally.
You know?
Or like Jamie Anderson doing double corks and stuff. Like if you want that and you want that rush and you like park jumps and you like seeing how far and how big you can go, of course, take it in that direction. But there's nothing worse than being at your 5th super park like me and being like, okay, don't have an anxiety attack. you broke your tailbone last year at Super Park. You just got to get the balls again and spin off the biggest jump. Like, I didn't want to do that anymore. And like, of course I listened to my gut, but it took me so long to just listen to it. So it's like, I think we're both saying the same thing to each other.
100%.
If you're, and I like that you mentioned that this goes way beyond just snowboarding. Like, if your gut long enough is telling you to do something, like if you're getting up every single day being like, something needs to change, then something needs to change. Like, and it's not going to happen with nothing. And I think we talk about this a lot with addiction on the podcast, that tends to come up, but like, you know, you just need to get the snowball rolling in the direction and not look at the big picture, just get up the one morning and just do something that's pushing you towards that thing. Whether it's, if you want to do a lip slide, then do something that's going to push you towards doing a lip slide, like a frontside 50-50. If you want to move towards health, then get up in the morning and make the smoothie instead of getting the McDonald's before you're going to work. It's like, just take one small step in that direction. And it's crazy. It seems like it's doing nothing, but it is doing something.
Yeah. That was, me 2 days ago. We went to mile 1 and I didn't have the burger bun.
Oh, how did you do it? Their buns are so good.
I don't know. Really hoping that pays off,
No, it totally. And it's yeah, it goes on a lot of levels. I mean, yeah, you want to save a little bit of money, even just having I always think of somebody who's like going to order food at a restaurant, and I think Belzil was really good at putting this into my head. It's not necessarily about like, you don't want the add-ons and the beer and you can afford those little things that they don't seem that expensive, but it's like, it goes way beyond that. If you're willing to save a few dollars there, you'll do that in all aspects of your life. You'll also be like, well, do I need, this in the car? And do I need this? And do I need that expensive apartment? And if you can always be trimming the fat, this is obviously more of a financial thing. You can also just like save a little bit of more money, save some money, so you can spend it all snowboarding, because it's the best thing ever.
100%. I think all that kind of rings true for just designing a life that you want to live.
And you are the queen of that. Let's talk about that, because I mean, you have designed a life that I would say a lot of people, like you've done it. You got a beautiful house, you have the best boyfriend, you're building this saltwater retreat on the island because it's beautiful and it's rad and it's a cool project. You've started a film company. I mean, you've embarked on a 20-year successful career, winning Rider of the Year, etc. It's like, how did you do all this? And how do you navigate the lows and the highs? And how have you're just somebody that's you've fully achieved your goals. And I think a lot of people struggle to even start that journey. Like, I look at mine and I look at so many things in my life where I'm like, I'm not doing that right, not doing this right. And I think that you've navigated this really well. This like you've curated a really rad journey to get towards everything that you've ever wanted in life. And I think that there's something to be said for that. And I think that people want to know, like, what was there, did you say something in your head every morning? Did you like,
I mean, no one life is the perfect life. I definitely have ups and downs for sure. And like, but I would say, like, you have an idea of what you want. Everybody has an idea of their dream life. Just write it down and then like work back from that.
See, this is good. Write it down.
Write it down.
Do you actually mean write it down? Like, you should actually take a pen and pencil.
Actually, I always have like books with me for notes, to-do lists, that kind of thing. And I always write like once a year what my 5-year goal is, what my 10-year goal is. And I always used to ask Jeff what his were. And he's like, why would we like talk about that? Like, that's 5 years down the road. I'm like, no, we need to do it. And I'd be like sitting there with my pen and paper. So what do you want to do like next year? And I think I've been like, having a goal is important so you can work towards something, and having it written down and discussing it with your partner. It's important because it's all about taking these small steps towards those goals. And And then eventually all of a sudden you've accomplished something that you never thought you would have. And sure, like a lot of the times these things are overwhelming and life brings you ups and downs. You lose your motivation. Like I've definitely had moments where I had zero motivation. I don't want to even think about snowboarding. And then I take some time off for myself. And also, I think a big thing is giving yourself negative space where you can have some time to like be creative. If you're always filling your space in your daily calendar with things and being busy and not really just kind of like grounding and holding some time for yourself, whether it's like reading or running or going for a dog or just sitting at the pond, like thinking about things. I usually find that like for me, going on a hike with my dog, I kind of think about things and then I can write ideas and goals down, but I always have to have some space to think about those things, because if you don't think about the next step, you're never going to take that next step. So yeah, I don't know, with my latest project, which is the Saltwater Retreat, I'm definitely getting overwhelmed with some of the things. It's just so much. And did I think about that before? No, but I just thought about the idea, and then my impulsiveness led me to this. And so I think that's what life is about, though, like going through the hard times and trying to figure and navigate how to get there. And that's the beauty of life, I guess.
Totally. So you're one of your big, it seems like a very small task to write your goals down. And I've actually heard it. I've listened to some self-help books and podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts on just like, bettering yourself in all aspects of life. And they typically do say to write things down. And I'm not like, I'm content with where I am, but I know I want to be somewhere else, which is exciting. It's part of the journey. As a lot of people would say, like, trust the process. You know what I mean? As long as I'm rolling my snowball in the right direction, I should be excited. But it's crazy what writing something down seems to do, because I know off the top of my head quite a few people who have followed that write it down. And it seems like those people have a lot of things that they have. I don't know if that just curates a space in your brain to manifest your dreams, and then they just become real eventually, because you're only letting in. I think it's really important to let in specific thoughts and not let in other thoughts. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you write this goal down and then your thoughts are you want this house on the beach, and you're constantly every morning saying beach house, you're just going to be doing things without even knowing, that are just going to be like pushing you towards that beach house. Where if you're thinking like, I'm a piece of shit, I'm fat, I suck at snowboarding, I'm not good at relationships, you're constantly saying that, eventually you'll just live that life.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to write those goals down. I'm going to do that right when we're done. I'm going to write my goals down. And you said 5 and a 10-year plan. I'm going to write them down. I'm going to call you in 5 and 10 years and let you know where I'm at.
Can't wait. I mean, it just starts with like having a to-do list. That's why I have the book. It's just like, if I don't have a to-do list for my week, I don't get anything done. I
love the to-do list. I'm a big fan of the to-do list.
Yeah. If I don't have it, I either have it in my notes on my computer, so I can always pull it up on my phone, or I have my notebook. I just have to write things down. I'm sure everybody has their own way of like remembering to do things, but I'm definitely pretty forgetful. And so I need it. And I also need to be reminded of what are my goals. It's not like I'm constantly.
See, that's where the writing it down comes into play.
Yeah. And then I can look at like, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. Need to get into that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, write your goals down, people. I think that's a good takeaway. I feel like that's important and it's overlooked in all aspects of life.
And it doesn't I feel like goals sounds kind of like
cheesy.
Yeah, I'd say dreams are better. Make the dreams happen.
Like, think big, or do you want to think kind of slow or like small?
Think big.
I like it. Yeah, if you think big, people.
Think big.
Think huge. Just like, okay, so 2016, you win influencer award from Transworld, which sounds absolutely horrific because it sounds like you're an influencer, which kind of was around that time when that word was really getting developed and stamped with like a negative, you know, at least to me, when I think of someone as an influencer,
agreed,
I'm like, damn, that sucks. Like you're devoting your life to not being anybody. You're just being, you know, who you're told from brands to sell yourself on social media. It's just like this life. But you actually win the influencer award for actually influencing a generation of people to go snowboard through, you know, countless things like runway films and stuff. What was it like to get that award at one of the last Transworld Awards in front of all your peers?
I think it was, yeah, to touch on the idea of the influencer, like it sounds shallow and it sounds like it's just like, oh yeah, you're just influencing for being you.
Totally.
But like, I think at that point in time, the influencer didn't have such a negative connotation. I think that they really, truly were just trying to give Full Moon a nod of respect. And I thought that was really cool for Transworld to do, just because maybe people who hadn't heard of Full Moon, it kind of brought it to light. So I just thought it was really cool. The whole goal of making that film was to showcase how we're all connected from the past to the present and the future. And I wanted to showcase, like, you know, the arm's length connection. And yeah, we did that. And it was the whole focus of the film was just to have fun. We thought it was the last hurrah. Like we were like, let's go and make this film. Like, who knows if backcountry snowboarding is going to be like relevant in the next few years with the Olympics and like the lack of support and all this. But after seeing the last few years roll the way it has been, it seems like it couldn't be farther from the truth. Like the backcountry is definitely getting a lot more there's a lot more people going out there, so
it's not going anywhere, that's for sure.
No, it's pretty rad to see.
I think after this COVID thing is fully done and everything goes back to normal, I think you're going to see a boom again in like young backcountry kids getting into the backcountry. And in a lot of different avenues, not so specific to like, I'm going out there and building a cheese wedge over the same gap. It's like, there's going to be kids that are making split board videos and people in side country and people like, everyone's going to go into their niche. And there's going to be a lot of really cool videos to come out in the next like 5 years. At least I hope the video thing prevails over the instant kind of gratification through social media. Cause I just think that when you get the snowboard community together to watch a snowboard video, or you set aside some time with a few friends to watch a snowboard video and not just watch it on your phone, that's still like, it's a lot more, it's just way dope. I don't know, maybe I'm a dated dinosaur who's holding on to that, but I think that even young kids that are like 15 years old that have TikTok and stuff, when you set aside some time to watch your favorite snowboard, surf, even just a movie in general, it's like when you set aside to turn off all the lights and like watch a movie and have a cold beer and watch it with a few other people that are really into that same thing, it's kind of special. You know, you share some laughs and you joke about one person's part and then this person's your favorite rider and stuff. And so I hope that continues to play a big role in our snowboard community, because
I think it will. I think there'll be a mix of both. I think this is maybe the roaring 20s again. Like, people just want to get out, and I think
it totally is.
Traveling is going to be a thing again, and you can just see it, you can feel it, you can feel the stoke, and like, what better thing to have is a gathering. Like, I can't wait for like music shows or like a snowboard premiere. It's just be the greatest thing ever. Yeah,
I can't wait for those things. It's like being together with a group of like-minded humans that are all excited about, you know, the thing that's in front of them, whether it's the concert or the movie that's about to play, is just awesome. When this stuff happened and And like a lot of my friends did really well in snowboarding, and there wasn't like a Trans World Award and there wasn't a snowboarder, you know, thing, and everything was kind of online. I was like, oh, this all just feels so hollow. Like you need to bring the soul back to snowboarding. And I had Pat Bridges on the podcast, and I was saying like how important those events like Super Park are, but hopefully we can do that on a larger, more inclusive scale.
It'd be nice to bring the like the West Beach Classic, how big it was back in the day here, like the Whistler Festival.
How big was it? I have no idea. See, I don't know the scale.
There was Pennywise. Like, come on. It was like
Jody, there was Pennywise.
Yeah.
And Offspring played and Swollen Members.
Yeah.
We had baggy low-rise jeans.
Isn't that style back?
Actually, you're right. Everything has gone full circle. I hope that you held on to all your old gear, because all that stuff is worth millions of dollars now.
I know. I bought an old school North Face jacket, and so did Marie. Marie bought an old school Patagonia, and we were rocking it. You're like, oh, I didn't recognize you. I'm like, yeah. We're trying to mix in with all the cool kids.
Yeah, there you go. Short jackets, big pants.
Yeah.
Head down to Mount Seymour.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch base before I ask you some final questions here is, I think there's a lot of takeaway from snowboarders losing their sponsors and then continuing to like follow their dream regardless of like big financial support. And I feel like you've probably had to juggle some highs and lows and financial support from your brands. And I think that just, you know, goes to show that it's never really been like fully about like the money, and you have to trust the process. And I think there's a lot of takeaway from someone who's been let go from one of their brands, but then they keep going, because it's really easy. A lot of people in action sports, when they lose a brand, they're like, okay, this is where it ends, I guess. Sure. And then there's other people that are like, well, it could end, or I could try for a few years. I could reinvent myself, start riding the train that and I think a lot of people, after they get let go, reinvent themselves and become a better rider than they ever have been. And I think a great example of that would be somebody like Zach Hale, who was on Burton and he had a distinct look. And then when he got off Burton, he shaved his head, started going ham in the streets, and just absolutely crushed it. And I was like, damn, like, I'm glad you didn't just go like, oh, I guess it's over.
Yeah, totally. I think the reincarnation into like, he was probably living more closely to his truth afterwards, like thinking he had to fit into this mold. And that was probably the best thing that ever happened to him. That's the best thing that ever happened to me, is like getting dropped by certain sponsors. And I've had like definitely some lows and maybe like slight depression from feeling like rejection from the snowboard industry. But then like, I don't know, like Jeff definitely helped me get through that. And he's like, you know, it's okay. Like, people still like you.
Yeah, it's
you know,
crazy.
You have to build. Yeah.
That feeling is real.
Yeah.
I'd almost like to touch base on that feeling of like, you know, you gain all this respect, and then, you know, like you win Rider of the Year, and you film these movies, and you feel like the ball is rolling, and everybody wants to have you in their magazines, and it's just this giant amount of like support, and everyone's pumping your tires. And then it seems at one point that you don't have a good year, you have another kind of off year, and then it's just completely opposite. And I think a lot of people, they get so far in their head with being like, oh, I'm not like valued, or I don't belong in snowboarding anymore, and it's easier for me to not attend these events and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I've felt all of that. I've gone through like a few roller coaster up and downs. I think you always have to remember, I think one good thing to remember is that like, you just can't rely on being a professional athlete all the time. Always have like some sort of backup plan. For me, like, I mean, it's not like I have life figured out. When I got dropped, I was like, oh my God, like I wasn't planning to like quit pro snowboarding at this point in the game. I was just like, I think this is when it came to the summers of just taking up some film work, like extra film work. I would just start producing and directing on the side in the summers so that I could fulfill my dream of snowboarding in the winters. And then eventually like things will fall into place when they're meant to fall into place. But definitely, yeah, it can be really hard because as a professional athlete, yeah, you're not like promised contracts till the end of time. It's definitely got an expiration date, and you definitely got to keep being relevant. Or, like one person gets into a company and they're like, well, I don't really back their style. And so then like this one person is in charge of like your whole future. And so I feel personally, I never really wanted to like rely on one big brand. I always wanted to have like, a couple of brands to support. And then I could just kind of like weave in some extra work on the side, make it happen. But yeah, it's definitely tricky. And like, yeah, I think it's hard sometimes financially. You just have to be able to like have a little bit of a backup plan when that happens. And then emotionally and mentally, I think that's the hardest especially like if you talk to people who are just like, cut, and then they're absolutely over it. And they go through like a little bit of a depression in the meantime, trying to figure out what their next career move is. And they leave snowboarding and they go back to school or whatnot. It's hard. You leave this like epic lifestyle of snowboarding to like, what's next? Not loving your next job. I've seen like a few friends go through that, but then also those are the friends that are like now killing it. So like Jackie Berg, she got cut from Vans and then became a physiotherapist, and now she's just had a child with Jeff's brother Brendan. So it's been rad to see them come full circle from them both doing pro snowboarding to like the fallout of it and the sad part and going through the mental struggles to back up again.
I almost wonder if they went through that as a couple, because I remember when Brendan I don't know if he got let go by Burton, but that era was done for him. He got on Battalion and he was filming some of his best snowboard stuff. I think he was in a few of the Given movies, if I'm correct. And he was just crushing it, but it just like wasn't going anywhere. And I just remember being like, damn, like he is so good. And same with Jackie. I remember being young and she had a few parts, and I remember being like sick style, like really talented, and being like, damn, like that's like a couple that's going to be like, and it just kind of ended for them. And I only can imagine that as a couple must have been pretty like defeating. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, it just didn't work. But then, and now they're probably looking back on it and they're like, well, that was never supposed to work in the first place because we're here now. And you said that she has a successful physiotherapy practice now, which is a lot more lucrative and a lot more, probably gives her a lot more flexibility with her life to, and flexibility in a lot of ways to like, to have like provide for herself and to be able to probably snowboard on weekends. But yeah, snowboarding is just it's a weird beast when you dedicate your life to something that has an expiration date that's out of your control.
Yeah. But the thing is like nobody can ever tell you that you are not a snowboarder and you don't deserve to be in this community. And that to me has always been the clutch bit of information that I always get to keep. We always get to keep that. Like we have the biggest gift from this snowboarding career has been to meet everyone around the world and have friends and connections, and nobody can take that away from you. So like looking back now, when I did go through hard times of like, low points in a career where you get cut from a dumb team manager that doesn't see your vision or just has other plans or doesn't have budget, whatever it is, so many reasons. You just have to remember that when one door closes, there's so many more that will open. You just don't see it. And it's really hard to see those doors when you're in a low point,
Oh yeah. I'm only imagining how many people are listening right now that are going through like a career shift, or like, COVID destroyed their job or whatever, and they're trying to like pick up the pieces, and they're like, they just don't feel like they have anything figured out, and it seems so complicated. But you got to just, as long as you have your shit together on some level and you trust the process and you keep that ball rolling, it just like everything just seems to work itself out. no matter how stressful the situation. I feel like anybody who's over the age of 25 has been through literally absolute hell at one point in their life. And we've all gotten through that. So,
yeah.
And it's going to continue. You know what I mean?
COVID,
I feel like every 5 years you got one big ball of fiery hell coming your way.
100%.
And you just got to keep charging through the flames.
Yeah. I think COVID was like, for the world, there was like 90% of my friends were like, I think I'm going to do something different. You know, like it was that, I think it was that negative space that the world was given to slow down. I think a lot of people had these ideas come to fruition where they were like, you know what, I'm not going to go this way in life anymore. I'm going to go this way. And I think that was like a pretty cool, I mean, it was probably really difficult for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people got really damaged by the residual effects of COVID, but it was probably, you know, an important time for us to kind of hone in on what is important: family, friends, health, and then career and whatever after that. But yeah, I think it's like one of those things where you just have to, like, if you're in a low moment in time, like you just have to make baby steps. Like, what could I possibly do? You could possibly do 10,000 different things, but like, what are you interested in? And just like, it's okay to try something that may not work, and not worry about it, and then try something else. You know, it's really hard. I think career transitions are,
it's really hard. My girlfriend's going through one right now, and she's not going through a career change. She's just, there's a lot going on at work, and she has a lot of like thoughts and a lot of dreams and ambitions and goals. And this, like, her life just seems like it's flying by, which I think a lot of people are thinking right now with COVID. It's 2 years, they haven't seen their family and friends. And you're like, well, what am I doing for this one time I live on earth that's about to disappear? Like, what am I going to do that's going to make me feel like fulfilled? And I think she's going through it's just difficult for her to wrap her head around. Like, it sounds weird, but when all of your options are like options in a way now, with like open source information on like YouTube and Google, and you can really find anything you've ever dreamed of learning, which 100 years ago people would dream to Google like how to build a house on a YouTube video, and in an hour you could pretty much build a house. Like, it's like, it's crazy. Like, if you want to do anything, you can do it. But when all of your options are options, you kind of have to narrow in and just take a shot at one of them. And like you said there, it doesn't necessarily need to be right. Like, you know what I mean? You can watch a few YouTube videos, take a course, and then bail on it. But I bet you that just taking that course will open your eyes to being interested in other things. You'll be like, okay, I kind of have this interest now. Or you could, like, if you dive into like the never ending abyss of marketing, you know, you might not want to do that type of marketing, but maybe you'll realize through a couple YouTube videos that this type of marketing is really interesting, or whatever. But you got to make the first step.
I find that YouTube is a really great resource for all the,
it's amazing. I use YouTube all the time for even just like how I'm feeling. Like, I'll just like type something in YouTube. And I mean, one of my favorites is TED Talks, just because there's just hundreds and thousands of videos on professionals / semi-professionals that are way more articulate than I'll ever be. And I think that they do a really good job of filtering like boring videos, and they just make really interesting videos on anything, you know what I mean? Whether you're into like, you know, how the brain works, or if you want to get better at whatever.
Yeah.
You know, or is overfishing stressing you out? Like, what can you do to make some money from the overfishing? I don't know. There's a lot of avenues.
Totally. It's I resort to that when I'm editing stuff. How do I do this? Oh
yeah. Premiere Pro, Adobe Audition, all of my editing tips are quick YouTube videos. And there's literally a YouTuber on YouTube that makes a niche for each thing in life. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter if you're doing like need to caulk something at your house, or if you're like I did a lot of painting in my day and still do. You know, you watch a painting video on YouTube, it's like some of those trick tips that they put out, I'm like, it took me 5 years to learn that. Now it's just on YouTube for free. It's like, damn it. kind of want some people to pay their dues in the trades. You know, now all these young kids show up with a year of experience and they're a better carpenter than anybody else.
Yeah, I guess you guys forgot to tape the windows. I got some paint from you, Jody, on the window.
Yeah, no, I was the finish painter. That's Adam Halbrick. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but
no, you guys killed it.
Yeah, Leanne's place on the Zoom call, behind her head right there is all of our work with the lovely professional Rube Goldberg on the paint. So what's next for you? What do you want to tackle next in life?
I want to get more into filmmaking again. I wish I was at Fairy Creek with everybody else who's out there, all the creatives. I think it's really important to stand up for things that you believe in. And I really think that like British Columbia is going through some like so many issues with our Indigenous situation, the residential schools, our old growth. Like, I just feel like I need to like stand up a little bit more. So my goal is to get to Fairy Creek at some point in and amongst all of this project stuff that I've got going on. But it's important to me to give time back to things that matter. So that's definitely, I would love to go there and like shoot something. I invested in a Red camera this year. And so, yeah, I want to get into filming and editing things.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I found your website and I saw that you edited and put together, I don't know if you edited, sorry, I should ask, but there was like an Audi commercial on there that was with some surfing with Jamie Anderson and Mary France Roy. And it was really, did you film that and edit that?
No, I produced it. So I hired everybody who was.
That was sick.
Yeah, they killed it. Aaron Leyland was a filmer on that. And Darcy Turen directed it. And then, that was a big project. That was awesome. That was really, they nailed, like, we were really lucky with the weather to shoot that. But that was really an honor to get the opportunity to be able to produce a car commercial.
Yeah. And did Audi purchase that and use that for anything? Or is that more of just a pilot to show that you can, you have the talents to produce?
No, it was a commercial that was on the big billboard at the YVR airport.
What?
It was like you come into international arrivals and boom, there it is.
Damn. Yeah, it was. See, that's where it's at.
It was a commercial for the electric car.
Yeah. Damn. And did you keep that partnership going? Because I feel like I saw you on a Hyundai commercial not too long ago.
Yeah, no, I just joined forces with Hyundai. I'm an ambassador for Hyundai.
What?
Yeah.
Good for you.
I actually, there's a commercial coming out this fall with me and Bella, and Bella's my dog, and she's the star. We go snowboarding in the backcountry. It's about hanging out with your best friend, and she's my best friend other than Jeff.
I was gonna say, what about Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff. Jeff's not in the commercial, but this whole thing is about Bella. Bella's the star.
Awesome. Good looks. All right, we're gonna go through 10 quick questions and then we'll let you get on with your day here. All right. Best style in snowboarding currently and back in the day.
Best style. You have some pretty damn good style right now.
That's not a good answer.
Yeah, it's a good answer. Back in the day, Noah Slasnik.
Sick.
The first people that I was influenced by from watching The Garden over and over and over again.
Very cool.
Poking out the snowboard. And that's what I'm saying. Like, seeing people who really just like tweak their snowboards, I really appreciate a good tweak.
Yeah, there's certain tweaks that I just can't do because my body doesn't work. You know what I mean? At one point you realize your body just doesn't work with that trick, and you've tried it a million times, and it's just like, the only way I think I could do it is if I like do intense yoga for like a full year, like a regular like method, like really cranked out method, kind of like I don't know, like a Jamie Lynn. mine is so much more of like a melon method than like a method. And it's my front hip doesn't work like at all in that way. I've never filmed a method because I'm like super self-conscious of it.
Really? You've never filmed a method?
Never. I've never had a method clip in my life.
Well, I mean, it is hard to get a good method. It's like, that's a hard trick. That is probably one of the coolest tricks you can do on a snowboard. And
I know. I got to figure that one out.
Marie France has a good one.
Who do?
Marie France.
Oh, she does. She's got a very good one.
Yeah.
Most underrated boarder.
Dara for Canadian.
Oh, sick.
She's awesome. She's so good. She's really good.
Dara is a really good example of somebody who has blossomed into like more of herself, you know what I mean? And it showcases in her snowboarding, and it's been really
I'm excited to see her part or her video or whatever she puts out there. I've been following along. She's been working really hard.
Yeah, she has been. She's been working really hard at snowboarding forever. I mean, I grew up with her riding when we were kids, and I mean, she's definitely paid her dues. You know, she was doing back to 70s 15 years ago.
100%. We're like, hey, Dara, when are you going to be pro?
Yeah, well, she did, because your common law, Jeff, turned her pro on Dinosaurs Will Die.
That was special. I cried when I saw that.
I know, because Dino's never really had like a strong presence for women snowboarding. So it was pretty sick to see him in the last few years kind of dive into that.
I'm glad you said that, because I was telling him that from the start.
I've always noticed that, because I was always like, damn, like Dino should get like because there's definitely some like Laura Haydar, kind of Desiree Hesh chicks way back in the day that definitely like suited like a Dino.
Yeah.
But like, you know, whatever. Snowboard crush.
Jeff. Always.
Good answer. Number 4, snowboard movie you watched the most.
Snowboard movie I watched the most. Recently, I've watched like the Mikey part in the Burton movie. Mikey and Solers and those guys in the latest Burton movie, The One World or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Dustin's movie.
Oh boy.
That's lately. Yeah, we were really stoked on that. And then YouTubing the old TB movies this winter. We just had like old school movies like cycling on YouTube.
They're so inspiring. The old like TB5, TB4, TB6, 7, 8, 9. Oh.
Tom Burt is legend. Like the stuff that the big mountain riders were riding back then it was just like so
they were as gnarly as any big mountain rider today. Yeah. And I mean, there was like the clip of like I think it was Hatchet, and he's doing a half cab off of a cliff, and it's like a 50-foot cliff. And it's like, I'm like, that's as big as, like, it seems like he's hitting like the Mother, and he's doing the biggest half cab ever. And I was like, I need to post it. I was like, this is the best clip ever done.
Yeah, they were so loose, and it's just so fun to watch because it's just a mix of everybody riding, and I love that.
Favorite brand?
Favorite brand? Really, really, I mean, I guess I could say the North Face. I love everything that they do with their team. It's not a sponsored thing. It's a sponsored thing, but it was a brand that I wanted to be a part of before I was actually a part of it. I think they just do so many good things. And yeah, for sure.
You hope a brand that's so involved in the snowboard, the outdoors world, is a strong advocate for positive change and
inclusion. And they're just so professional on every single level. We just had our expedition proposals last week, and it's peer reviewed, and it's got to be like the biggest. It's like so stressful because you know that like whatever you're putting out there, it's like Jimmy Chin and Hillary and like all these crazy mountaineers are like grading your stuff. Jess Kamira, Cole Naven, like we're all looking at each other's project ideas. Cool. It's a pretty rad process.
That's rad that you threw Cole Navin in the mix there. I always forget that he's on the North Face. Is Spencer Schubert still on them?
I think so. I just saw that Cole Navin has he's got a collection coming out.
Wow. Yeah, to me, he's one of the best snowboarders in the streets, and he's very underrated. Like he's definitely a big name in the States, but I just don't feel like, because he's so low key on social media, I feel like he just kind of goes flies kind of like under the radar almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's insane. His part in the latest Vans movie is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. He's put in his time, and definitely, I feel like I've been disconnected from the rail scene, but
of course,
being connected to a brand that supports all realms of snowboarding, it's rad to see what he's been doing.
It's weird because I love steel and I love backcountry, and I watch contests, but I don't follow them very much. And when you talk to a bunch of backcountry riders about rail riding, they're all like, nobody knows a single clip or anything, for the most part, unless they were like a pretty strong rail rider. Even if they used to ride rails, they're like, yeah, I missed those last 10 years of rails. I'm sorry, I just don't care. It's like, and then it's the same thing then I go on a rail trip and I'm like, yeah, it's like this guy's Switchback 3. They're like, I don't watch backcountry stuff. Like, I skip
totally. It's all to each in their own. Everybody has their own thing, but I'm definitely more attracted now to watching like mountain powder stuff versus the rail, but it wasn't like that 10 years ago.
Powder, park, or steel?
Powder.
Duh. Best resort?
Pemberton backcountry.
There you go. Great answer. Worst trend?
Worst trend, online hate.
Dang, good one. Favorite clip?
Oh, I saw a sick clip this year of Jamie Anderson doing the sickest switchback 5. No, the sickest back 5 off a cliff.
What? How?
Yeah. Nobody does that. It's insane. It's mind-blowing. It's so
I'm so jealous. I've been trying to film a good back 5 in the backcountry. My first clip I ever filmed was a back 5, second clip, almost 15 years ago, with Matt Belzil on a jump called Cover Jump. Matt Beardmore had a cover on it, so that was why it's called Cover Jump. And I landed a back 5 on it first try. And I remember being like, damn, back 5s are easy in the backcountry. What are you talking about, Matt? Why doesn't anybody ever film these? What's going on? 15 years later, I still haven't landed a good back 5 in the backcountry.
Yeah, I haven't either. I can
do that's a tough blind switch, slow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Jamie's a boss.
A boss.
Who is the GOAT?
Jamie's a GOAT for sure. I think Annie Boulanger is a GOAT in my eyes, looking up to backcountry riders. I think Marie's a GOAT. And then Devin Walsh is a GOAT for style. And who else? I don't know, Gigi Ruff, Travis Rice. There's so many GOATs.
Yeah, there are. That's the thing. But the GOAT is technically the greatest of all time.
I know.
So it's tough because I know there's so many avenues like style and everything like that. I think you did a good job of flying around there and picking a few from all categories.
Yeah.
That's sick that you said Annie. So did you look up to Annie when you first moved to Whistler? Like, how long has Annie been doing this?
I mean, I think she was only doing it a few years before me, but she was just so damn good and so stylish and like sent it, and everything she would do was what I aspired to be. And so, even if I was riding with her, I was always looking up to her.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's sick. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You absolutely freaking rule. You've done so much for snowboarding. It's rad to see that you're still in the game and you're still doing it and you're still giving back. And we're excited to all stay at your retreat.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jody. I'm so stoked that you've got this podcast series going on. This is a nice way to give back to snowboarding too. in the
Yeah, I
sport?
didn't really think of it as that at the beginning. It was more, I like to talk about snowboarding. I want to have an excuse to call these guests and dive into their heads about snowboarding because I like that. But as it would turn out, yeah, there's definitely a lot of people from over the world that have hit me up being like, hey, that discussion really helped me with this. And it's cool because they're part of the snowboard community without like, you know, they're not like at the premiere in Hollywood. You know what I mean? They're from Germany or whatever. But to have an impact on someone's life that's technically a part of, anyone who snowboards is part of the snowboard community. And it's like a way that I can give back to the snowboard community that's at large and not just in Whistler or in my little bubble.
Yeah.
And to share these stories to hope that some people get inspired. I mean, like, there's no way that there aren't people right now that are finishing this being like, damn, Leanne has done all of that with her life. Like, started a production company, works for Audi, you know, building this place in the woods, a retreat, rider of the year. It's like, built a house. You've crammed all this stuff into such a short life right now. It's like, you know, people need to get going. Write your goals down. 5 and 10
Write
year
your goals
people.
down. No, you're killing it. You're gonna get the Influencer of the Year award next year.
No way. I'm saving that. I'm saving that for the bomb hole or effing rad.
Yeah, you guys are all contributing. It's so great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, rad. Sweet. Enjoy your day. Thanks again for coming on. And I'm sure I'll bump into you sooner than later.
Yeah, sounds good. Maybe on the island.
Looking forward to it.
Take care, Jody.
All right. Peace.
Bye.